The bandsaw is noted for its ability to cut curves and irregular shapes. However, it can also make straight cuts, such as a cross cut, which is cutting across the grain of the wood, and a rip cut, which is cutting with the grain, as well as angled cuts, such as miters and bevels. The bandsaw can also be used for resawing, sawing thinner boards from one thick one, and for cutting multiple copies of the same shape. This program has been divided into the following segments. We'll begin with safety and follow with getting to know your saw, blade assortment, basic cuts, accessories, and projects you can make. While the bandsaw is an exceedingly useful power tool, like all power tools, it can also be very dangerous if not used properly. Therefore, make sure you follow the general safety instructions for all power tools. Make sure the parts are properly assembled and adjusted. Keep the power off except when you're actually using the saw. Wear safety goggles whenever you're working around the machine. Don't wear loose clothing, jewelry, or watches. If you have long hair, tie it up or tuck it under a cap. When you're operating the bandsaw, make sure the guard is adjusted to just clear the workpiece, and your hands are clear of the blade and out of the blade's path. Keep your workplace clean and well lighted. Since woodworking can be messy, it's a good practice to clean up as you work. Most importantly, go over all the safety instructions given in the owner's manual and on the bandsaw itself. Understanding them and following them may save you from having a dangerous accident. Let's take a look at the bandsaw's controls. The on-off switch has a locking feature which helps prevent unauthorized use. To unlock the saw, insert the yellow key in the switch. You turn on the saw by putting your finger under the end of the red switch lever and pulling. To turn off the saw, push the red lever in. In order to remove the yellow key, keep the switch in the off position while pulling the key straight out. It's a good idea to put the key in a safe place away from the saw when you're not using it. The tension adjustment knob is on the top of your bandsaw. Tightening the knob by turning it clockwise will increase the tension on the blade, while loosening it by turning it counterclockwise will decrease the tension. You can see the tension on the digital display counter. The correct tension will depend on the size of the blade. The bevel lock knob, which is located under the left front edge of the table, and the hand wheel are used to set bevel angles. To tilt the head for a bevel cut, first unlock the bevel lock by pulling out the knob. If you have the electronic bandsaw, press the bevel key on the display panel so you can read the angle of the blade to the table. Turn the hand wheel counterclockwise to increase the tilt angle of the blade. When you have the bevel angle you want, lock the bevel lock by pushing in on the knob until it is fully seated. The bandsaw has blade guides located on both sides of the blades, both above and below the cutting table. The upper and lower blade guides support the blade and keep it from twisting during operation. The backup bearings support the blade from the rear. The guides and the bearings can be adjusted in or out for various widths of blades. Setup, adjustment, and alignment procedures vary from model to model. The blade of your bandsaw must be installed and aligned properly. The specific instructions are in your owner's manual. The guide bar lock knob is located on the right side of the bandsaw housing. It allows you to raise or lower the upper blade guides. The upper blade guides should just clear the workpiece while you're cutting. Always adjust the guides before turning on the bandsaw and lock the guide bar by tightening the knob. For this demonstration, we're using a bandsaw with an electronic indicator system. If your saw does not have this system, refer to your owner's manual for adjustments and settings. The electronic indicator system provides a way to accurately position the blade and monitor the setup. The display can show the bevel angle, the blade tension, and the blade speed. The functions include an on-off key, the bevel angle key, which selects the bevel angle display, the 10 key, which selects the blade tensions display, the FPM key, which selects the blade speed display in surface feet per minute, and the reference set key. The reference set key sets the bevel angle to 0. You need to set the bevel angle to 0 whenever a battery is installed or new 0 point is needed. Normally, you set the 0 reference with the blade vertical to the table. First, press the on-off key if the display is off. Then press the bevel key and then the ref set key. The display should read 0.0. To select blade tension, press the 10 key. The display will show one of 7 tension settings ranging from L, which indicates loose, or no tension, to the right tensions for different size blades. Turn the tension knob until the correct readout appears for the blade or sanding belt you have selected. To see the blade speed, press the FPM key. It will read out 3,000 feet per minute or 1,500 feet per minute, depending on where the motor V-belt is positioned. The 3,000 FPM is recommended for normal operations such as basic wood cutting and resawing. The 1,500 FPM setting is for operations requiring more control of the workpiece, such as intricate wood cutting and cutting veneers, tile, and plastics. Bandsaw blades come coiled up. Before you uncoil the blade, make sure you're wearing safety goggles. Hold the blade at arm's length as you uncoil it. Blades for the bandsaw vary in width from 1/16 inch to 1/2 inch. The widest blades are used for straight cuts, resawing, and where slight curves are to be cut. Thin blades are used when a short radius curve must be cut. Blade information charts, such as the one in your owner's manual, indicate the minimum circle diameter that can be cut with each size blade. For example, a 1/4 inch blade, the blade that comes with your bandsaw, will cut a circle with a minimum diameter of approximately 1.5 inch. Bandsaw blades are available in several varieties, those that cut wood and those that cut metal and non-ferrous metals. The wood cutting blades are either general cutting, fast cutting, or scroll cutting. Bandsaw blades also differ in the number of teeth per inch. Use blades with more teeth per inch for smoother cuts. When you want to cut non-ferrous metals, such as brass, copper, and aluminum, you'll need to use metal cutting blades. Every time you install or change a blade on your bandsaw, you must follow the alignment steps for proper tension, blade guide, and bearing adjustments. This alignment procedure is gone over in detail in your owner's manual, along with the steps for squaring the blade to the table. By properly aligning your blade, your cuts will be as accurate as possible, and you'll avoid premature blade breakage. The bandsaw can be used for all types of cuts, including freehand cutting, cross cuts, bevel cuts, rip cuts, and cutting curves. Freehand cutting is the least accurate method of cutting and is generally used just to rough out work. Before you begin your cut, make sure the blade guard is down and that your hands are out of the path of the blade. Start the cut in the waste material. While cross cuts and rip cuts can be made freehand, they are much more accurate if you use a miter gauge for your cross cuts and a rip fence for your rip cuts. Both the miter gauge and the rip fence are available as accessories. To cross cut using a miter gauge, set the gauge at 0 degrees. Position the workpiece against the miter gauge. Remember to put the blade guard down before doing any cutting. Turn the saw on and guide the wood through. Bevel cuts are angled cuts. To set the angle with the electronic indicator system, first press on and then press bevel. Unlock the bevel lock and turn the hand wheel counterclockwise to get the angle you need. Then lock the bevel lock. Adjust the blade guard. Place the workpiece against the miter gauge Turn the saw on and make the cut. In order to rip stock, you'll want to use a rip fence as a guide. Attach the fence to the table and lock it in place so you can get the cut width you need. Lower the blade guard, turn the saw on, and make the cut. The band saw is known for its ability to cut curves, and there are several tricks that can help you. Try to remove any waste you can with the first cut. It's also a good idea to make relief cuts, but be sure you don't cut into the pattern lines as you make these cuts. If the shape is complex, cut it in stages and reposition the piece for easier access. If you have to cut the same curves on several pieces, nail the pieces together on the waste material and then cut all of them at once. You can also glue them together. Make sure you put a piece of paper in between the two surfaces. This makes it easier to separate them when you've finished. You can cut circles freehand, but for the best results, you'll need a circle cutting jig, which is available as an accessory. Set the indicator at the diameter you want and tighten the thumb screw. The starting point of your cut should be at the edge of the workpiece. Lower the blade guide to just clear the workpiece. The center pin will just touch the workpiece. Push down the center pin to seat the point, turn on the saw, and turn the workpiece slowly into the blade in a clockwise rotation. When you finish the cut, turn off the saw, lift up on the center pin, remove the workpiece, and throw away the surplus wood. Resawing is sawing thinner boards from one thick one, and it can be done easily with the bandsaw. You'll need a rip fence to use as a guide. Lower the blade guide to just clear the workpiece. Scribe the thickness you want on the top edge and adjust the fence. Hold the stock firmly against the fence with one hand and feed it into the blade with the other. As the saw approaches the end of the cut, use a block to push the stock forward. You can cut tile, plastics, and non-ferrous metals such as brass, copper, and aluminum with your bandsaw. But first you'll have to change the speed setting from 3,000 feet per minute to 1,500 feet per minute. To change the speed on your particular model, see your owner's manual. For the non-ferrous metals, use a metal cutting blade. The bandsaw can be converted into the sander by installing the sanding attachment and the sanding belt that comes with your saw. See your owner's manual or accessory guide for instructions on installing the sanding attachment. As you sand, make sure you don't push your workpiece too hard against the sander, or it may burn. If you want your cuts to be as accurate as possible, you'll need a miter gauge and a rip fence. The circle cutting attachment helps make cutting circles easy, and a variety of blades and sanding belts give your saw added versatility. Using the bandsaw, you can make a number of projects. Cut-out letters or numbers that are used as a door or letterbox sign are easy to do on a bandsaw. And this kind of curved cutting for a decorative shelf is also easy. A combination of precise measuring and careful cutting is the key to basic woodworking. Your bandsaw is capable of cutting curves as well as making all the straight cuts and resawing. By using your bandsaw properly and by following the instructions in your owner's manual for proper alignment and maintenance, you'll have a power tool that will greatly increase your woodworking capability. In the second part of this tape, you will learn how to use your Craftsman Band Saw to make this rocking horse. As a finished piece, this rocking horse may look like a difficult project to make. It's actually quite simple, and it can be completed in 1 or 2 evenings. For the purposes of this demonstration, we have pre-built the rocking horse in several stages. This way, it will be easier for you to follow the progression as we go through it. Make sure that you view this entire tape before beginning the project. We've also included printed project plans with this videotape. For this project, you'll need the lumber or stock listed on the bill of materials as shown here. The construction of this horse can be accomplished in 3 steps. First, all of the pieces needed are cut according to the plans that come with this tape. Second, holes are drilled for the screws used to fasten the horse together. And third, the pieces, which include the head, legs, seat, and rockers, are assembled. Before making any cut with your bandsaw, make sure your saw is set up properly. The guide should be set very close to the saw blade, right behind the blade tooth gullet, and the guide should be set 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch above the stock. We'll set the guides this way to prevent the blade from twisting. Finally, check that the saw is set at 90 degrees to the table. The electronic display should read 0. Also, don't forget to wear goggles or safety glasses when using any power tool. To make the head, legs, and seat of the rocking horse, first make a template for each piece from the information contained in the project plans. Then trace the outline of the template onto your stock. When you cut the various pieces, always remember to leave extra stock around the edges of your outline for final sanding and filing. The first piece to cut is the head. The head and neck are fairly smooth cuts and should be no problem. The neck is a tight radius in which to move the saw. To simplify the job, we'll make relief cuts first. Relief cuts are simply straight lines cut close to but not touching the outline of the pattern to be cut. In this case, the neck. Make 3 relief cuts. The cuts will allow for parts of the scrap to fall away from the wood as you cut the pattern. Remember to turn and feed the stock at the same time. Failure to do so may cause the blade to bind or break, and can also cause the blade to dull prematurely. Always allow the saw to come to a complete stop before removing any pieces of scrap. Lay out and trace the legs and seat. You can cut the legs separately, or if you want, you can cut both legs at once. Just tack the 2 pieces of stock together with finishing nails. Remember to leave the nail heads exposed so that they can later be removed. Make sure that the nails are safely inside the pattern, not the scrap, since the scrap will be cut away. The sides of the pieces should be even before you begin. Use a slower feed rate when cutting 2 pieces at once. When you finish cutting, remove the nails and you'll have 2 identical pieces. The holes left by the nails are very small and can easily be filled with wood putty. The next step will be to cut the rockers from 1x4s. Position the rocker template so that you exclude any flaws in the stock. Since both rockers are identical, you can cut them separately or together, as you may have done with the legs. When all of the pieces are cut, the next step is to round all of the edges. We're using a router table with a rounding bit for this process, but you could also use a file or sandpaper. This Craftsman router table has a unique fence that can be turned 180 degrees and still have a guard for protection. Now that all of the pieces have been cut and rounded, we're ready to lay out and drill holes for the screws that will hold our project together. We'll begin with the rockers. Refer to the drawing included with this tape for the proper position of the holes. We'll drill these holes with a drill press. That's the best, neatest, and most accurate way to do it. But if you don't have a drill press, you can use a hand drill. Drill 4 screw holes through each rocker. Then counterbore these holes with a 3/8 inch spade bit so that they can be filled later with a dowel plug or button. Next, lay out and drill the screw holes that attach the legs to the seat and the screw holes that attach the head to the seat. Again, refer to your plans for exact placement. To align the head to the seat, mark a center line through the middle of the seat board. Also, mark a center line on the front and back edges of the horse's neck. Position the head on the seat so that the lines match up. Then mark and drill the pilot holes as shown on the plans. On the top of the seat, counter-bore the leg holes for dowel plugs or buttons. Then turn the seat over and countersink the holes for the flathead screws that will attach the head to the seat. Now we're ready to begin assembling the project. For added stability, we've made dado cuts on the seat for the legs to fit into. If you don't have the equipment needed to make a dado cut, an ordinary butt joint will work. First, place the legs into the dado slots on the seat. Then transfer the marks for the holes onto the legs using a center punch. Make sure the edges are flush with the sides of the seat before punching. Drill a pilot hole and then glue and screw the legs to the seat, making sure that the legs remain square with the seat as you do so. Next, line up the rockers on the legs and transfer the marks for the holes using a center punch. Drill pilot holes for the screws and attach the rockers. There's one last hole to drill before we can complete the assembly, and that's the hole for the dowel handle in the horse's head. Mark and drill the hole according to the project plans. Before inserting the dowel handle, sand the edges. Insert the handle into the hole, offset by about 3/4 of an inch. Put glue on the offset portion of the handle. Then slide the handle into place and wipe off any excess glue. Now, screw the head to the seat. Fill all the screw holes with dowel plugs or buttons. When the glue is dry, finish sand all of the surfaces. Finally, stain or paint the rocking horse as you wish, and your project is complete.